Shalom and welcome to the Daily Halacha. The Daily Halacha is sponsored by Doreen and Marshall Lerner in memory of Marshall's mother, Alma Lerner, Asna Bat Moshe. And we are now moving on to the second language of Tefillah, which is Sha'ava, which we find in Sefer Shemot in the book of Exodus, when the Jewish people begin to cry out to Hashem for their freedom after they've been in slavery. Let's read the pasuk. Vayehi bayamim harabim hahem, vayamat melech Mitzrayim, and long after that, the king of Egypt died. Vayeyanchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avodah, the Israelites were groaning under the bondage. Vayizaku, and they cried out. And then here comes the phrase we're going to focus on. Vatal shavatam el ha'elohim min ha'avodah, and their cry for help from bondage rose up to God. So what is the nature of this sha'ava, of this crying out to God? And so Rabbi Pinkus says, it is a tza'aka shel bakashat rachamim. It is a request for mercy, but it is even more extreme than the previous language of bitzur, where one is in a sense of distress. Rabbi Pinkus here actually writes out a word, an English word in Hebrew letters, hysteria. This is a prayer that comes from a sense where a person is really at their wit's end, and they think there's really nothing else that they can do. The type of prayer that one feels when one feels that they have no livelihood, or that they are have a very, very serious health crisis. Bitzur, which we saw earlier, also comes from a sense of crisis and distress, but not as extreme. And here we're talking about degrees, but it's a type of thing that is so important to us that we think without it, or if it continues as is, our life simply cannot go on. That's how serious it is. And Rabbi Pinkus quotes a Gemara here in Masechet Timura, which I would like to share with you. The Gemara is talking about Otniel, who is also has some other names in the Gemara, and the Gemara asks the question: how do we know that his prayer was answered? And so the Gemara quotes Divrei Hayamim as follows: Uminalan shene'enu. How do we know that he was answered? And then the Gemara quotes the pasuk: Vayikra Yavetz Elohei Yisrael. He was also known as Yavetz. Lemor im beirach tevarcheni v'hirbeti et gevuli v'haita yadecha imadi v'aseh marati levilti atzvi vayavu Elohim et asher sha'al. And that means he called out to God of Israel, saying, if you will bless me indeed and enlarge my border, and that your hand may be with me, and that you will work deliverance from evil, that it may not pain me. And God granted him which he requested. So what was he asking for here? So the Gemara goes through a list explaining each phrase. If you will bless me, says, is regard to success in Torah study. And you will enlarge my border, he was asking for success for his students. And your hand will be with me so that my studies may not be forgotten from my heart. And that you will work deliverance from me means that I will find friends like me. That it may not pain me, that the evil inclination should not grow stronger and prevent me from studying Torah. And if you do good, good. And if not, I will be depressed, he says, and go to my grave immediately. And that's what Rav Pinkus says is the key to this type of prayer. It's, again, this type of thing that if we don't find success, we feel like there's nothing else we can do, that we've reached the end of the rope. And then the end of the pasuk is, and God granted him that which he requested. That type of prayer, Rav Pinkus has suggested, has a high level of efficacy in terms of being answered. Now, of course, this requires us to judge what the really, really important things in our life here. And that's really, for me, the key to this notion of prayer. What are the really important things in our life that if they go wrong, or if we don't have them, or if they're different, we feel that we can't go on? And it really asks us to talk about our priorities. And in this conversation, also, another Gemara talks about the health of their children, interpreting his prayer. That's not only, there's another list of things that this prayer is interpreted to mean. But in all of them, they all share the common denominator of things which are at the top of the food chain for us. And that's a really interesting thing to think about before we begin to pray. What are we going to put our greatest prayer efforts into? Which also then helps us think about our priorities in life. Always something good to do, especially when we are praying. Have a wonderful day.